Welcome to Reality After Show coverage of the Challenge All-Stars 4. Today, we are talking about the finale. I'm your host, Dan Montchal, joined, as always, by Alex Trias, Lauren Pratt. And Alex, Lauren, it'd be easy to start off and, make some type of joke about how, well, I kind of get why we had to wait a year for this season or something along those lines. But I'm gonna just use a little bit of Alex Trias in Survivor coverage where he's Mr. Positivity.
Okay.
Credit this podcast right here is we willed a top 3 finish to Handjob Steve. It was all of us. We did it, guys.
You know what? You are. And in a different world, even with the twist that this final had, we were very close to a Handjob Steve winning All-Stars 4. And that's wild to think about.
He had it right in the palm of his hands, right in the fingertips. It was there.
Right where he likes it.
The issue was he was too busy edging. He didn't finish.
Steve. Yeah,
but he will at going full Marvel graphic. He will return in All-Stars 5, and maybe that's where he'll finally finish the job.
Maybe.
But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I was thinking I was going to just drop out amicably and give my star to the person that I truly want to win. Not because, Dan, you've done this before. You've done the pod regularly now. It's time for someone else, a better friend, some would say, to win. So I'm going to give my star to Lauren Pratt.
I'll take it if it gives me the win. If I win $250,000, I'm not going to complain, folks. I'm not mad about it.
Only if you release the bugs after.
Oh, Ace!
What a wild ending. Let's just say that first off. It's it's such a weird way to finish the season where they're like, okay, we need something to truly wrap this up, not just a win. Ace, go release the bugs. You've earned it.
Thinking about back to starting in episode 1, but even if you were just to go to episode 5 of the season, you'd be like, oh yeah, 2 of the last 4 people to be on the be in the running for the money is Ace and Steve. That part of it's wild.
Yeah, well, especially when you look at just how the season started, because everyone, this is a finale pod of a challenge podcast. There's only so much we can really talk about other than us being upset with the twist of it. I don't even care about the winner. Let's be real. It's cool, Laurel won. Well, we'll get to this spot, but there's a fun conversation to have about Laurel as a winner when it comes to the GOAT conversations, because I think Dan might be on the same page with me, but she could be dropped down a peg or two, just based off of the circumstances surrounding both her wins.
It's quite possible. We can save that for when we get to wrapping up Laurel at the end. But you can definitely make that argument.
But going with what you're saying, we start this season with Steve in elimination.
Where he was losing.
He was there was a legitimate chance that he was going to lose that first elimination, and we have a completely different season on our hands, which is wild to think about. That just one little change could have really upended this whole season.
That's why you always have the what if scenarios, because one tiny little factor impacts the entire rest of the season, and someone that ends up winning or ends up making the final would not have made that final if one person comes in or out of losing an elimination.
The what if factor is because Handjob Steve was acting like a squirrel hiding his nuts with the balls. That's the what if factor there.
No, I'll give you a what if. What if we actually had a decent final?
Yeah, that was rough. I mean, I know Rachel did a whole thing online about the final in particular, and it being unique and different. But of course, people are going to have their opinions on it. But for me, you dropped the ball in the sense of these were some awesome all-stars that you had coming back. Hit them hard with the final. Given, I don't even know what I want to say. Just something where there was no running really in that final, aside from the end part of it where they're going in a circle. But again, how far are they really going,
Right. It just felt weird it just felt out of place. Like, I'm not even mad with, well, I am sort of mad with the day 2 of it all, where it's just like, you're just repeating the same thing over and over again. It felt very like, damn, we covered the world championships. I left the world championship one being like, like, we get a good winner. We get like Jordan gets a good win. Kaz is there. They actually are legitimately running the entire time, doing 5 unique tasks. Where here it was just like, oh, you're scootering down, you take a shot of fish piss or eat a cockroach, and then you do essentially the same task over and over again. What, like 4 times? We're a week removed, folks. Like
I think it was 5 loops around. Yeah,
but it just. This was the first final in a while for me where I actually like legitimately got bored and zoned out because I was like, what is the point? What am I watching right now? It was only until like the last 5 minutes where suddenly they were like, oh, and Steve's on Laurel's neck, and oh, Cara Maria's also on Laurel's neck, despite Laurel having all these stars to surpass like all these casts over and over again. I'm like, I don't know. It didn't feel like a final. And I get all the challengers and like Cars come out and say like, look, this isn't the 5th sport of America. Like, you are going to get carny shit. This is just a very carny shit final. It doesn't mean we have to like it. It's ultimately like, I'm less pressed about it a week removed, but I still have it down as like a bottom 5 final format.
Oh, it's an awful final. I mean, you were talking world championships. That it felt more of the classic what we love, like a Rivals 1 type scenario where it's 2 days, there's a lot of running, it's grueling, and you walk away from it and be like, all right, Jordan and Kaz, like they earned that. They deserved it. Where you have this, it's going backwards. This one reminded me of, it's like the Gauntlet 2, where you could bet on different activities. You had like, I forget the exact thing, but it was like, say 200 something to bet. And if you won, you got the points plus what the other person betted. And it was the vets put all loaded up on the eating portion.
On the first thing, yeah.
And they lost. And then it was like, all right, final's over. And that's exactly what this final felt like to me.
Oh, yeah. It was well, very,
this is disappointing.
Like, it's very Gauntlet 2 and The Island. Where like the island was, okay, you have your boat. Go sail your boat. And I'm like, that's it. Then again, like back then, it was only like 20-minute episodes also with ads. So it's like, okay, excusable, not great. I'm not going to fully accept it, but it is what it is. This is on a streaming service. You have time. You have all this resources in front of you. And you're like, when we said anyone could win this, we wanted to legitimately mean that anyone could win this final. And to me, that's a little unacceptable for the challenge just as a precedent.
Right. But can we also talk about this? How do you think Nicole feels sitting at home, know that she helped Laurel win the money by giving the star? Like that for me is a part of the final. I'm like, that's just the way it goes.
Like, who was she going to give it to? Like, of the other options.
Just realizing everything that happens in the aftermath with their entire situation, it's just like, ooh, yeah, I made this happen. I was part of contributing to this factor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't think that it played that much of a fact. Maybe it did. I mean, it depends what the total time was. But like just talking about the whole format for me is I think this would have been a lot more accepted if this is what we got in like, say, All-Stars 1, where the whole cast was told, hey, this is going to be carnival backyard games. It's not going to be that grueling. And they got out there. And the first few episodes, everyone on the cast was just getting their ass kicked. So they kind of set this precedent for All-Stars of being like, maybe it isn't going to be as tough as some of the flagship finals, but it's still going to be very tough and demanding. And then to go this far backwards on the 4th installment just feels dirty.
It just, I'm like, I don't know. And I heard a little bit of the Rachel interview too, Lauren, and Cara's with on the Zach Nichols podcast, where they're just like, look, like Yeah, like, why would you cast someone if you didn't think that they could win if they got to the end? But I'm like, true, great point. But, like, you're taking away everything that we know about the challenge. And yes, the challenge is we're doing a bunch of goofy games and ultimately somebody wins. But it just felt like we were just adding and adding and adding more, another twist, another twist, another twist. Where, like, yes, the challenge has its twist. I've never felt in a final where I was like, this just feels so, like, so fabricated. Like, we're just up. We're going to do another way of doing a twist. Up. We're going to do another way of doing eliminations. We got to day 2, and normally we don't eliminate anyone in day 2, but another person's going to get eliminated. I'm just like, what? I don't know. It just felt like I was being drug along.
Right. And just, if we're going back to All-Stars 1, just the elements alone where they had to sleep overnight outside, they're in shivering conditions. This one, yeah, okay, they're sleeping in the rope and all that, but they have pillows, they had blankets. You know, it's just a different feel, a different atmosphere. And I guess because I do love the challenge so much, I loved the cast this season. I'm not going to take away anything from the cast. I just wanted to see that hard running final that I think all of us were expecting to get based on the caliber of the players that were on the season.
Yes. One thing I completely agree with that 100%. But going back to Alex, I forget which interview you said it was from. I guess it was Cars, where, anyone should have a chance to win. No, I don't want to see everything where they have a chance to win. Like, because then you're just picking the best athletes. You know, you're seeing more of KCs every single season. And that isn't what we want. Like, you need people like Jasmine on this season where it's all about drama and entertainment. And if you go back, like, it isn't like, this is the way that it's always been. Like, okay, like, Rivals won. Did anyone really think that Tyree and Davis had a shot at winning that, game? No, but you were hoping for some drama and to get some excitement out of it, which I guess he hooked up with Jasmine, so we did get that. But that's what we want, is we want the entertainment value, not
I want
24 people, however many there, that can definitely have, all an equal shot at winning the game. No, make the best show and give me 8 people that have a solid chance at winning the game.
I agree with you. The thing that I feel like it gets lost in translation on our podcast, especially from when I try to pitch it, because we see it in the comments. I want that perfect balance of people that can compete. They don't need to be the most athletic, but they can compete and bring entertainment. Like, say what you will about a Laurel or a Cara Maria, like, both polarizing characters on and off the show. They bring it all. They are the complete package. Like, Tony hasn't won a main season, but he is everything. He's a great competitor, but he's also a dumbass. Like, you have all of it. Johnny Bananas has all of it. It's like you have these people that can come on the show and be it all. And we have people that can get to, like, be like half of it. And I'm fine with, like, a Jasmine being on, especially a Jasmine in this day and age. Like, she's fun on here. Like, and I love being able to be critical of her, because, like, now that I'm critical of her, because I can see the social game that she can have. So I'm like, cool, that's good. And she's a big personality. Do I think she could ever win? No. And I don't need her to be able to win, but I need to have some sense of believability that these people that can get to the final can win without it being a final where it feels like you're being handheld along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in what world, even in a world where we get to day 2 of this, do we think a Veronica can win this? At this version of Veronica, not the Veronica that was in the old version of the challenge where she won her 3 championships.
No, she has no shot at winning, but I think that's also, like, that should be part of the game, that if you have someone who's entertaining, there's never been anything wrong with finding a way to bring layups to the final. Look at Jay and Jenna, like, their first time. That's what they were. There was still entertainment value for them being there, but then once it got to the final, even before they flamed out, it was just, okay, they have no chance, and that's fine.
Also, it's entirely possible to think about it from this aspect as well. Someone such as John A. When we saw John A. come back, our expectations were pretty low. We said, is she going to be able to compete? Proved everyone wrong, has now become one of the better competitors. This is her prime. So that can still happen with anyone else that hasn't been on this All-Stars season format before, where they could come in and, whoa, was not expecting them to come out of the woodworks. They're in here to compete, and they're doing quite well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's what Cara was her first 5 seasons on the show. The way she was her first 5 seasons on the show, or, roughly, she had 0 shot at actually winning a final. But then she turned into what she obviously became.
So this is sort of a free-flowing podcast here because, like, we know what happened here. Let's talk.
You don't want to talk about Spicy Foot first?
No. So let's talk about Cara Maria here and like the reaction that she's getting from the other players. Like Leroy was on Bananas podcast and it's like criticizing Cara because she was a Debbie Downer because she lost. My first point here, Leroy, Cara should be down after losing. Like she just came back from a 5-year absence where more than half of it wasn't because she wanted to be away from the challenge. Like she wanted to come back, she wanted to win, and she lost. Sorry that she isn't used to losing every single season that she competes in.
Well, Leroy set a record. Do you see the record?
Was it how many times he says his boy Kingston?
No, because him and Corey, like that's still neck and neck.
Is it the amount of times he got into a final and lost?
Yes, no one has gone to 6 straight finals and lost. He broke his tie with Corey, who's at 5, and is now no one's lost 6 straight.
Where's Nani on that list?
Nani hasn't made that many though, because she's
been to at least 4.
I think she's there. What? So Free Agents was her first, then technically X's 2.
Yep, X's 2 counts.
Spies, Lies, and Allies.
And Double
Agents.
Double Agents. Well, and Ride or Die. So I guess she's at 5 as well. Yeah. All right. So all right, maybe it was a 3-way tie. Or maybe that one could have just been guys. I don't know, but I did see that.
But
Leroy was
but like that. It's funny because people have a comparison of like it's so fitting that Leroy and Nani started on the same Real World season because they also have the same challenge history, which is. You wouldn't expect that seeing both of them on paper. But
Nani a little bit more so than Leroy.
Well, no. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying
okay.
You wouldn't expect Leroy to have the same record as Nani.
I mean, to be fair to Nani, I feel like she was starting to get propped up a little bit when she finished 2nd in Free Agents, where it seemed like, oh, she actually could potentially win.
Mm-hmm. And we'll come back to Free Agents in a little bit.
Love talking Free Agents, gladly.
So my bigger issue is I feel certain people like a Laurel, the reason why Cara gets so much flack now is because of how, even though she's Debbie Downer and all that stuff, like she is more confident in herself now than she was when she first came onto the show. But I think a lot of these people still look at her as like, it's that weird dichotomy of they look at her as the biggest threat and they look at her as like she should still be who she was in the first few seasons where we could pick on her and belittle her and she'll just accept it because we're better than her, and it just feels off. And when she's just there to compete, now she does need to get better at the social game, especially now that we see a final where your social political game still matters when you get into the final, which was always supposed to be the one thing about the final that has no involvement with a social or strategic game. Like there's little moments, like you could sabotage someone. If this was a final where like you were just sabotaging someone instead of especially gift wrapping a win for someone, I would have a different reaction to all of this.
Speaking with Cara, I think part of the issue is just because she's not involved in the challenge community outside the show as much as really what everyone else is. And that's where I think it isn't that she's bad socially. It's just she doesn't have these outside ties that everyone else does. I mean, you look at it, who knows what's even, really going on between her and Pauly. We're not really going to comment on that. No one really knows what's happening.
Well, they're still going to be doing Zach Nichols' live show in San Diego together.
They still are going to be doing that. But you'll see that, over the past, 5 years where they have been together, they've been dating. You see Pauly with challengers all the time. you almost never see Cara with them. It's just not something that she does.
Right. It's not
that's
her
not her lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. But look at it too from that aspect, how her mind switches when she does enter into a game, because she automatically thinks, okay, when I see Brandon there, we haven't spoken in this many years, correct? But we're good. Like everything goes back right to where it was. But that's not how it constantly works these days. You have to still continue to intermingle with other people, meet up with them, go to the events, because that's what everyone else is doing. And that's sometimes how they come into the season with other people that are willing to have their back almost right away, where she's relying on past relationships of people that she felt good with. But now they're coming in, I want to do something different because I've stayed in the fold a little bit longer with other people.
Which I will have hope for that, because I think it was once Brandon was off the show, he made a post, like one of it that was specifically about Cara, saying that we're good now, we're better than what we'd ever been. And so maybe that is something that she's picked up from this game, and being like, hey, if I really do care about this person and you're my friend, because you could say that's a flaw. Like if you do really care about these people, you should be reaching out and talking to them, whether it's challenge related or just life. How are you doing? And if she hasn't been doing that, but she's realizing that now, it's something that's only going to benefit her in the future, because it's what you have to do.
Right. And you also have to think about the time period. Like, yes, everyone had their little pre-shit all throughout the challenge history, but it became more prevalent right as her absence started. Like, as her absence started was when the Vacation Alliance became a thing. Like, that's when it went overdrive into the pre-gaming months in advance. Like, you're always hanging out. You're doing all the trips to Florida, like all the trips overseas to hang out with each other and like gang up on whoever else shows up on a season so that you can share finals with each other and get your wins. She wasn't there, and she was more in a time period where like even Bananas will say on his like interviews even back then was like, yeah, like we don't talk to each other. Like we talk to a few people, but that just wasn't the challenge thing of staying tight after the season. Like it was sort of like summer camp. If like for all people who've done summer camp, it's like you're restrictive, only summer friends. And then you do your other stuff. You go to school, you have your school friends, you do all your activities, your sports. But then the next summer comes, you go back to summer camp, the same people come back, and it's like you leave right where you left off when you left summer camp the last time. And that's sort of how the challenge used to be. And for someone who's more of a lone wolf like Cara is, that's perfect, because then she can go back, do her horse stuff, like be alone, do her thing, and then come back and she can turn it on when she needs to. I think also being away for 5 years impacted that, where there was probably a possibility where she's like either had periods of I don't want to ever come back on the show again, or feeling that production would never have her back on the show again. And then you have Pauly show up on the CBS season, and then you right immediately after is this season of All Stars where she gets cast for that, and now Challenge 40 is coming around. Now she's gonna be called in for that. Maybe that allowed her to like light up between All Stars 4 and Challenge 40 of like, okay, I need to stay in contact with people and do a little better there.
Especially when you factor in what term she left prior to the hiatus. She left like where she was good with some people in her alliance, but the fan base, and I'm sure a lot of competitors as a whole, her last viewing on War of the Worlds 2, she was a punching bag. Everyone shit on her and Pauly and everything that they did. So if you're not trying to make amends and stuff in between that time, which I'm sure she didn't like try to do whatsoever, that's, the rumors, the things that are being said is just going to grow rampant, and it's going to turn into way worse than what it ever should have been. But that's just the way the world works.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to get that part out of the way because I think that's one of our bigger points of talking.
So spicy foot.
Actually, spicy foot. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, no. So first thing we get, Derek gone. We all knew this was happening. Derek's
what?
Gone, but yeah.
Such a shocker, everyone.
Yeah, spicy foot. You need to eat peppers tied to a fishing line. You raise your foot. and it drops. I got nothing. Nicole wins.
Look. First off, Derek is also someone who needs to just turn off his social media for a week. Dude was
he doesn't need to reply to everything.
He does not need to reply to everything and try to justify. Dude, you did it. You don't tell fans that they can't be upset over the format of the final. They're sure some of them are also bashing you because their car stands, and as soon as Cars on the season, the car army comes out in full force. I get it. But there were legitimate ones in those comments that were like, no, I didn't like it because I didn't like the format of the final. This has never really been a thing. And him just hammering down, doubling down, well, too bad. This is what I did. Stay mad. I'm like, dude, you've been gaining a fan base here. Mm-hmm. Don't lose it all just because you have a little bit of an ego here. Calm down a bit.
You know how it is. Some people want to defend it to the grave with their opinion.
Well, Laurel does too.
Yeah, no, we have many of those that are on the season.
It's sort of funny. It's funny. Spicy foot.
Yeah, Nicole wins. You go to the stupid bouncing drink one. Leroy's gone. We lost Leroy and Derek.
Dude,
it's a shame.
Leroy lost to Veronica.
Yeah, but what a dumb way to go out.
Oh, no.
Way you could go out in the finals.
And that's why I hate a challenge final where anyone can win means that anyone can lose as well. And look, it's not the first time we've seen Leroy get out in a final early, but it just felt like such a silly way to go.
I'd be just off of how it was you can see how it works, but just how off of it was described, where TJ literally uses the word marinade, oh, so I lost because I don't know how to work a fucking puppet. Are you kidding me?
I just wasn't a fan of it at all. Just the operation, how it looked. That's just not something that I found appealing to even necessarily watch to. It was kind of one of those things where I was just sitting there halfway paying attention to who finished and who didn't,
Exactly. That's how, I literally was making dinner watching this stuff, and it was during this competition. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look away and make this pasta right now. I'll come back in 5 minutes.
You know what I was a fan of, though?
Handjob Steve.
Getting that star from Leroy, doing that work, doing the hand jobs, getting the star.
No, absolutely. And I know I've heard from other people before, more of the reasons why Steve wasn't in a good position. Apparently, Steve just really liked to talk about himself, which
that's the least surprising thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, isn't that the whole point when you're on reality TV? Is you just have all these things that you can talk about yourself to other people. That's what you do, and then someone else talks about themselves back. It's that's sort of what you do. But they were just very annoyed with him, so that's why no one vibed with him. Ace is Ace, and that's why they didn't vibe with Ace.
Well, he has model in his job title. I get it's hand model, and it's completely different, but isn't that pretty much standard?
Apparently,
for him to have that ego and arrogance, being everything is about me as a hand model, that makes me love him even more.
Truly, and it's just so I get it, and that's why I respected Leroy for giving him the star. And in my head, I'm like, I feel like if you're anyone, despite being friends with Laurel or respecting Kara as a competitor, because Kara says it immediately as soon as the twist is revealed. She's like, well, I know I'm not going to get any of these unless Steve or Ace leave. So I'm going to be fighting an uphill battle here.
I want to point out one thing. We definitely think that Cam, I know these are crapshoot challenges. We definitely think Cam does better than Leroy here in performance value, correct?
This season, I'm not so sure.
Okay. I'm just curious.
It's just because you get the wrong thing on elimination, and there just may not be much you can do. But, if we're running through this quick, and if we're going to keep propping up Steve, you know what he's going to be great at? Hoseball. Going to be fucking awesome at it.
Hoseball. You know what? Let's go there now. So Leroy's gone. Derek's gone. But, we predicted this, Dan. We were like, they're going to do one more round of just one person getting eliminated, and then they're going to do a round where 2 people get eliminated to then get us to the second day. We were wrong about how second day would go, but we got this part right. So it's a 3-way hose off who could really handle their fire hose the best and release that release it all onto other people. Some people definitely took some illegally to the face. Some facial happened there, yes, for sure. But I don't understand how actually, I can understand why Laurel and Nicole would get mad, because it's literally 90% of their personality.
Especially Nicole.
But how can you not think that Steve is going to force Veronica's hand to help Cara and Ace? Where I thought that was the smartest thing Steve could do here, was like, I'm not going to get this win, but I can help make sure that Laurel and Nicole wins. And I was like, I'm so glad he articulated that, because I was like, he's right. Like, prevent them from getting advantages. Like, Laurel essentially tied for a win in one of the advantage dailies. Nicole won an advantage daily. Short, it was eating peppers, but whatever. But why give these people that already have all the friends here even more of an advantage going into this elimination? So, like, I had no issues with him helping Ace and Cara, and they get the advantage.
But if you look at what the pecking order does end up being, I don't think so much changes. Say, like, if Laurel and Nicole do finish first, Veronica and Steve are the next 2 to go, definitely, right? Even so, and then Cara and Ace would be last.
Well, it depends. I don't know how did they, because I don't recall how they determined the pecking order unless it was the players themselves picking the next person.
It was.
You come out and pick.
So the issue
Cara
there,
then
yes, but the issue is, in a world where Steve and Veronica win, if Steve goes first and then Veronica goes, Veronica's going to let Laurel and Nicole go before Cara and Ace.
Yeah.
Well,
so it did matter. Yeah.
I was kind of saying, though, if you think about it, whether Steve and Veronica win and then Laurel and Nicole win, both scenarios I see Cara and Ace going last. So what I was saying kind of with that is, I think no matter who Steve's helps in that scenario, he's not going to be one of the last 2 selected to go into the room.
I agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. But it works out. So let's go to this elimination, which the elimination I did like. I liked how they did this. You reward the people who win, and you allow the players themselves to determine the order, which, if you're going to allow a social strategy based off of like you being a loser and propping someone else to win, then you should allow elimination where you can be strategic with who goes when.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just, it took until actually seeing how it played out to really understand what the hell was being described in the beginning, at least for me anyway.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because it was like, you have this challenge, but you have 2 other challenges, and you can only choose one, but they only can be done twice. And I'm like, okay, just show me what it is. And to be real, I would have been tricked with the first one.
The nails?
Yeah, because if you live in Pennsylvania, or you went to college in Pennsylvania, or really a lot of other schools, you played Stump.
Yes.
And when you play Stump drunk, where you're flipping the hammer before swinging blindly down, I think you can do pretty well with being able to be sober and just pounding the shit out of a nail.
See, for someone who, I don't say I have a construction background. My grandparents own a remodeling company, so it's what I did a lot of summers growing up. Hammering nails is a real bitch, and especially a 7-inch nail. Yeah, that's gonna suck. There's nothing enjoyable about it.
But what we learned is all you have to do is be pissed off because people accurately see you as a threat, and how dare they give you a disadvantage when you've been handed advantages this entire final, and also to get into the final because you were too much of a pussy to go into elimination to grab your star.
That's the Trias rampage right there, folks.
I'm just, hey.
This is why you're here on the podcast.
They all love talking about they want to be real. I'm just being real.
All right, so if we go back to Spicy Foot, no, Veronica and Nicole, they're out. I don't care.
You don't want to talk more about Nicole? Nothing else you have to say for the send-off farewell?
No,
I'm sad she's on All Stars 5. That's all I got for you.
They made the wrong choice. Like, ultimately, like, they should have. I know the nails are a bitch, but like, unless you do their task perfectly, like I saw that one and I agreed with Carl. I'm like, no, like if you do this one, you will be one of the losers. Like that rolling of the ball, I'm just like, there's just too much out of your control versus the other two challenges that they had at their disposal.
Especially with the marble one, was simply that you didn't have like a stack of balls that you could roll one after another and try to get like a rhythm of how the board works. Having to run down and grab it each time and come back up, like you got to figure out that learning curve of it really quickly and then remember, because it's like, that was 20 seconds ago. Exactly how did I roll it to get it to go like that? It can just be a lot.
So like Cara picks and Ace objectively pick the easiest one. It's like one that initially you'll be afraid of because like, oh, you're lighting yourself on fire, but you're really not lighting yourself on fire. And then you just have to throw the ball through like the fire rings. Like that was objectively the easiest one. Like if Veronica wanted to be able to survive and get to day 2, that was the one that she needed to do. Because she would have been slow on the nails and she was going to be bad at this. Even though there was a moment where I'm like, watch Veronica, she's like, she gets it right on the first one through like just pure luck, and they'll say it's because she's a strategic genius.
It would have been really entertaining to watch her ride that scooter down the hill because I think she would have eaten shit in day 2.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if she would have gone down there because she said she needed Adam there to motivate her in the final.
I am surprised that Nicole did not choose to do the nail and the hammers because Nicole always talks about brunt force, being able to, be strong and all that. And I'm surprised she went with the luck-based one. But again, when does Nicole really use her mind?
I think she was faked out when she saw that Steve could swing his hose better than Nicole could. And she was just want to know part of it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So we finished that and oh no, guys, here's the sob story. Laurel has to sleep by herself and she's all alone. You don't understand. She is alone. Huh. I wonder if there's anyone in the final that understood being isolated by the entire house and were othered and wanted nothing to do with them, so they were basically isolated. Couldn't have been Cara.
Yeah, have Steve, you seen Ace?
And Ace. Like, couldn't have been any of them. And I don't know. I just really hated this twist of handing the stars out because it just felt so fucking petty. Like, especially from like Veronica. Because like with Nicole, you knew she was gonna give it to Laurel. Derek, it's him justifying to himself that he deserved to be there by only being able to get in for the last competition. And he's like, well, Laurel did that too, so I want her to be able to win over Cara. I'm like, for someone who's like trying to like now call themselves like the GOAT for women and all that, like it seems weird that she's so accepting and wanting of all this extra help in the final to beat someone that's JV.
I think the real reason is because it's what's really strange between looking at everything Derek and Ryan, because we know, they're besties, soul sisters, love each other. And it's the way that Ryan has come out and spoken saying, no, going into the show, I was closer with Laurel. Then there were some things that happened on the show and then afterwards that I didn't love. So now he says I'm closer with Cara. And I think it could have been as simple for Derek as that, is saying, hey, I was close with Ryan and we had a closer relationship with Laurel inside the game. And that's why that happened. And I think, sure, that's fine. We can understand that explanation right there, but it's the fact that he has to keep doubling down that hurts him, because you're not making any valid points.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It just felt, I don't know. It just didn't feel like fun. And maybe it's, and I totally understand I have a Kara bias, but like, I want to make it very clear, like, if it was all of them giving it to Kara, like Steve and Ace leave and they both give theirs to Kara, like, I get it, because we see more of that through line in the season of them being close, but I still wouldn't like it, because all of us as fans, we wanted to see the two of arguably the best women to compete on the challenge go head to head and see who could beat who when rubber meets the road in a final that like we all envision. And maybe this is our fault as viewers for having this fantasy of
lower
this, like,
your expectations,
this perfect final. But I don't leave this final going, oh, well, this cemented it. This, now I fully understand who is better than who. And if anything, it doesn't skew towards the person who won the season.
Yeah, I also had a question before, we talk about everything day 2. Can we talk about something that's more hypothetical and exciting? Because day 2 certainly isn't. Let's go back to the start of this final. All 8 of them are there. And say that these little checkpoints that we have here, they're more of, it could be this, even the same checkpoints, but they're more like the stations that you'd see in a typical final where you're doing that in between, say, running 1.5 miles, 2 miles. Who wins? Or it's more of your typical final.
Well, one thing we do learn after the fact, not on the show, is I guess something happened during day 1 of the final or late in the season where Laurel tore like one of her ligaments in her knee, or one of her knees. Like, I forget. I think it was the MCL. I would have remembered if it was ACL and it wasn't that one. But like, I think in a straight up race, it would have, like, Kara probably would have beat her. But Laurel's tough. Like, I still think even with that injury, she could have like held her own.
Well, and I'm including in the Leroy's, the Derricks, Veronica and Nicole, not so much, but Leroy and Derek into the conversation as well.
I still think it's between those two, if I'm being honest with you, because
I agree.
If you're having all these different stations and all, as we've said, the running in between, I mean, look at all the other people, the running skills in comparison to those two.
Yeah, the only person who would have had to run for their money, if we started with all 8 and didn't eliminate people, would have been Derek. Just because, like, he did track growing up. He still obviously runs now. We saw how he ran during that competition in the stadium. And, like, he trains in Arizona. Like, he lives in Arizona, so he trains in Arizona in that type of heat. I'm like, if you can do long distance well in that environment, then you're pretty much a lock to do it well in any environment. So, and we saw him do very well in the dailies this season. So you could have made a case that in a world where no one gets eliminated and you're just running the entire time and doing competitions and keep moving on, like our classic challenge finals, Derek probably leaves the winner.
Right. I mean, do you also think that they learned from this and on the next one it's going to be a legitimate final just because of the
So what they learned is they are going to have a Final Reckoning style season where there's potentials of guy pairs going against middle-aged women, and like they haven't learned anything. The challenge never learns.
I don't even care because they're giving us Handjob Steve back. Fuck it. Who cares? I mean, yes, I'm happy to see like the Devons, the Franks, and some of these people we haven't seen in a while. But just give me Steve for every All-Star season. He doesn't need to be on the main show.
Davon can surprise us. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for Davon being the one, quote unquote, person that comes out of the woodworks for this.
Oh, that wouldn't surprise me that much if she came out.
I'll be very real. I fully believe they have an intended winner for this season. Not saying they're rigging it for them, but there's definitely someone that they're trying to get their challenge win, and gave her a very good, potentially a very good
it's someone
partner.
we already talked about on this podcast, isn't it?
It is.
Well, if they wanted to do that, what they could have done is kept the season format the way that it was and not split them up into individuals, and they potentially could have gotten the outcome they would have wanted.
Yeah, truly.
So it's their own fault. Well, but all right, day 2 of the final. Race down a mountain on scooters. You have to do a star loop, which just means that you do the first one, and then when you come back and do the next loop, you have to do 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. And it really wasn't all that exciting. The first one is either take a shot of something gross or eat a cockroach. The second one, game 2, is this pipe puzzle. No wonder Steve did well on that. 3 is you're stacking 10 stones. 4 is you're building a challenge puzzle. And then 5 is you're playing like that bar game, but you're doing it yourself on the harness.
I want to hit on that. Because the last game, them having to put a tether on you and everything and hook you up.
It takes so much time.
Yes, yeah. That was the dagger, the whole dagger with the entire end of the final.
Well, the dagger was truly star management.
Of course.
Because the whole reason you had your stars was you could use those to sort of forego some of these and just continue running or scootering. I truly do not remember, and nor do I care. But what upends Steve ultimately is him forgetting the rule that through each cycle you can only use 1 star. So he gets to the end where he's caught up to Laurel. He's like, well, I have 2 stars. I can just forego the last 2 challenges. This one only takes me like 8 seconds to do, so I'm just going to skip that anyway. Who cares? And then I go to give my star for the one that actually will take time, and he has to be told by someone on production, like, no. 1 star.
All right,
1 star.
I'm going to update my prophecy is we willed and manifested a Steve finishing top 3. Maybe we gave him a little too much praise. It got to his head. He wasn't listening to the rules.
It's possible. And we don't know what the conditions are like. It could have been very hot. You're running rampant. Like, you have so much shots of fish piss in you, like, that you are just going loopy. But I have to commend Cara and Steve for being able to still, like, roughly stay neck to neck with Laurel, despite Laurel having a significant advantage over them.
Yeah, if you believe what has been reported out there, it's Laurel won by half an hour. Now, the sources are people that are Laurel pro Laurel, so I take that with a grain of salt for how long it actually was, but that is the report that's out there.
Regardless, it's like, in a world where we get to this day 2 and everyone just has to do the tasks, like, it was any of their 3's game at that point, I feel. Like, we could have seen a Steve win. We could have seen a Cara win. We could have seen a Laurel win. But because of these stars, it takes away what could have been of, like, an equal race going to the end. And you can miss me with the cringy ass shit of Laurel doing the callback of varsity JV, and now it's varsity, and like, could we be rivals on a future season together so that we can both get another win? I'm like I don't know. To me, a lot of people are like, oh my God, that's so cute. And to me, I'm like, oh my God, that's so cringe. And I hate that because you're still being fake to her after you've been sabotaging her this entire season. And Cara only gets to know about this after the fact. Because, like, Cara was, like, legitimately happy for Laurel that she won. And has to look back and be like, well, now I look like a fucking dumbass for feeling like I was trying to be supportive of her despite everything she was doing. Like, we leave this with them. Like, we talk about the friendly rivalry of them. And now it's just like, it's just rivalry now.
Well, and I think, too, the other issue you have is you have seen Cara with finals and stuff. She is very congratulatory to the winner, and she was, right as you said, very happy to see her get the win. But I don't know if roles were reversed there. If Cara winning and Laurel coming in second, we get that same reaction. You know what I mean? It's
Laurel's
hard
throwing
to
a bitch fit there.
that's what I mean.
Oh,
I just don't see the same response. And I don't know if the whole rival thing was to kind of ease Cara coming into second place and kind of making her feel like, well, no, it's okay. Like, let's kick ass if we meet up again in a future season together.
And they will be meeting each other in a future season
together.
The
biggest issue that I have, especially with some of the podcasts that have come out lately, where Laurel was a guest on Bananas as well, like last week, the week before, it was just Leroy. Leroy, he wants to have his opinions on everything with Cara. Hey, that's fine. I may not agree with them, but he knows her better. I don't have much to say there. Whatever, I still like Leroy. Where it gets really hard with someone like Laurel is she looks, because she's so black and white and there is no gray, she looks, I won the season, so I did no wrong. I get to justify everything that I did because I won the season, and I'm not willing to admit any place where I had my faults.
Yeah.
And that's a glaring issue for Laurel.
Yes. And because I found it funny and ironic where she's like talking about her win, and it's like, I finally learned how to play a social game while still being able to be cutthroat and true to who I am and keep my heart open. I'm like, I don't think we, like, obviously she experienced what she experienced. We were not there. What we were shown does not equate to that. Like, yes, she did have more of a social political game because she was able to pregame and tell everyone, hey, fuck off to Cara. She's the biggest threat because she's won a individual final before. We need to do everything we can so that all of us, can win so that we can have bragging rights.
The one big thing I will add about Laurel is always Laurel, and I do think it's so important to have her on the challenge seasons. Whether you like her or not, she's very polarizing. You can be a fan of her 1 second, you could dislike her another second. She gives you the all-around package of a challenge character. And at the end of the day, she did get the win here. I think she's going to be the type of person I want to defend that win because she knows people are commenting, oh, did she really deserve it? She had so much of an advantage, and she's someone that will come back and want to prove, yeah, I deserve to win a season. Another season because she's won.
I agree because this final, regardless of who won, it reminds me of the NBA in 2020. As everyone jokes about the Lakers winning their the Mickey Mouse championship. Like, it's your COVID ring. It's not a real ring. Like, that's how I feel about this season. It's like, it still counts. She is still now a 2-time champion, but it has to be talked about that because someone tried to claim that Cara's never beat legitimate threats. Where I'm like, well, look at her elimination record 1 to show that she's beaten champions. And 2, she's beaten champions in the final and a lot of your faves. So, miss me on that part. Laurel, her first win was against a Nani who was just like happy to try to finish. And
don't you dare say something bad about Devin.
I'm not. But Devin was just there being like, my goal is to complete the final. Devin's knew that she was never going to win. I'm not going to say anything bad about Devin there. But in a world where you're like, oh, it's Laurel versus Nani for who's going to be the woman winner of free agents, on paper, you're like, oh, it's clear as day going to be Laurel. Like, it will be a landslide how much of a difference in time. She won by seconds. She won by seconds. It was, you know what I mean? Like, when you're talking about climbing a mountain, minutes to seconds. Like, we're not talking big gaps here.
Her final was beating Teresa in the last elimination where it was all off of luck because you were pulling the cards. As soon as it got to that, oh, it's Laurel versus Teresa there, whoever won that likely was going to win the season.
Right. But What I'm saying is she barely beat Nani, who, if you were watching the season, a lot of people wouldn't have thought would be like even close to being able to win a final. Can we agree on that?
We can. And this is weird because I'm not taking the most pro Cara position out there. Is if the only thing I'm going to push back with is if you look at both of them together, they got a lot of finals losses. There's a lot where they're
there's
not.
A lot of finals. There's a lot of finals losses for sure. I'm focusing on the wins.
Okay. Fair enough.
So she barely beats Nani in free agents. And in here, she wins in large part because of the twist of the final being, if you are lucky enough for your friends to get eliminated, they're going to give you your stars to have an advantage in the second day. And if you got the same amount of advantages as whoever got 3 stars like she did, or 3 additional stars, was going to win the final. There's a reason why we only saw 8 minutes of day 2. And it was because it was written in stone who was going to win because of how many stars Laurel had. Like, that doesn't equate to, this confirms anything to me. It confirmed nothing to me other than, congrats, Laurel, you're now 2-time champion. It's respected. This doesn't take away from the fact that she's still one of the best women to compete. But it doesn't do that solidification that herself and a lot of other people were hoping of, that this means by far and away I am better than Carmaria because I won a final where I was given any type of advantage, and also the advantage to get into a final without going through the literal format of the season. And then in her eliminations against Cara, one of them was with Cara one-handed. Like, you haven't proven what you think you've proven.
Can I make an argument for something? Since we're talking about different variations.
That's why we're here.
Please.
Champs versus pros. I want to know, the first season, we're talking the first season that Cara and Darrell win, is it arguably a harder final than the final that we just saw on this All-Star season? Because it goes back and forth with people. It's going back and forth. Yeah. With people claiming, do you count those champs versus pros, champs versus stars as wins? I say no. So that's why I was wondering.
The show also says no.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just wondering, I'm just basing on the first champs or pros because I did think that final actually had some oomph to it, in the sense of they had the eating, they had the running, they had all the different elements in it. This one, I don't know. I don't know. I can't decide which one.
This felt very second champs versus pros, where it was like Johnny, CT, and Emily Schramm win in the Olympic Games style format. It just didn't hit. I will still be on record saying I think this season was a good season. Mm-hmm. It could have been a great season if the final format was different, regardless of the winner.
Going back to just like the Cara and Laurel conversation, I agree with you. For me, I don't think it changed much. So if you were going to have me rank, or Mount Rushmore, top 5, female competitors of the challenge, I think where I would have had them was I would have had Cara at 2, Laurel at 3, with this final being over. And Laurel, you could even maybe say a little bit less. But I think Cara at 1, Cara at 2, Laurel at 3. I don't think I change anything. I think after this season, Laurel 1, sure, it's great, but I'm keeping it exactly where it's at.
I agree.
No, that's fair enough. I just think they're both good competitors. At the end of the day, that's
End of the day, good competitor. It's like we're talking here in this. I'm not making this a direct comparison, but it's the same way as basketball writers debating who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James. You tear down people during this argument, but it's clear end of the day that we're talking about two of the people that are some of the best to do it. It's the same thing here, where it's like Cara and Laurel objectively are two of the best to do it. Just period, women or men, regardless, on this show. Yes, a lot of losses in the final, Dan, but still, objectively, some of the best to do it. Name recognition, talent, and just the aura about them.
And to be fair, that isn't, a lot of losses in the final. Like someone like Bananas, who going up to him coming back where he was 7-2 or whatever in finals, that's the outlier right there. Someone like Jordan who does really well. I mean, you look at CT, no one's going to say take anything away from CT because he has a number of finals losses as well early in his career. Like he still got there. It still counts, but
yeah.
I think when you're talking about the greatest, you kind of have, that's where you are. You're nitpicking and you're looking at the finals losses.
For sure. But that's basically everything when it comes to the finale. Any other final thoughts there before we do our the blind rank?
No, overall, not a bad season. Could have had a better overall final, like we said, but you can't complain. You had the character development there. You had the storylines. So I'm not mad about the season overall.
Compared to some of what we've seen lately, especially, on the flagship, it was a step in the right direction. If you thought we were going to get something, just pure awesome that everyone was going to 100% say is great, they haven't been paying attention to the challenge for the past few years. So something where we're getting a lot of the boxes checked that we liked, I'd take it. And my last thought is, hand job Steve for All-Stars 5 winner. Let's go.
The only reason why I'm ruling against that is because Adam's paired with him.
Yeah, but Adam will have to sit and spin if Steve gets him a win.
Exactly. Just sit and spin, Adam. Let Steve do all the work. It's what he's used to. But that gets us to our blind rank. So this time, we have a lot of people on All-Stars 4 who are going to go and make an appearance in Challenge 40. Cast is starting to get revealed. I think even today, they released the Era 1 of like our OGs. So I have 5 people that were on All-Stars 4. We are blind ranking how they will do in Challenge 40. Okay?
Alrighty, let's do it.
Okay. First one is Derek. Specifically Derek Chavez, because there's multiple Dereks on the next season. So
let's see, Lauren. So we'd have what? We have a possible of 7 or 8 people I think you can name.
Right.
So we'd have a pretty good idea. Like I think he's got to mention, you'd assume, a Cara or a Laurel. So I don't think you can go too high, but I think you'd put him above people like Orion, and I hate to say it, but maybe even a Leroy.
I would rather have Derek as my horse in the race for Challenge 40 over based on what we just have seen recently with performances with Leroy. But here's my other issue with Leroy. Sometimes he turns it on for certain daily challenges, and I say to myself, where was this Leroy 2 challenges ago? So he's such a hard player to predict.
Mm-hmm. So where do you want to put Derek, Lauren?
I would be fine with 3. I just think maybe Derek might have a little bit more momentum going into this season than Leroy could. But again, Leroy's always someone that surprised you, could have a really good run and then just not do great in the final, as we know statistically.
I think 3. That's a good starting, We're going to end up with 1 and 5 being our 2 open for the last 2 as always. But yeah, no, we'll put them at 3.
Sounds good.
Okay. Brandon.
See,
lower.
I think lower. I think lower too, because Brandon, aside from what Cutthroat, I would say he did really well in eliminations there.
Cutthroat has been his only good season.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I think it just Cutthroat. So I would go for 4 would be good for me.
I think he's 4 or 5.
Well, okay.
If we're talking about just based, I mean, I don't know, because Derek, we really haven't seen it, but besides the flashes this season, we're giving him the benefit of the doubt. But Brandon, it's just like, man, we haven't seen anything, and we can go 4.
And maybe 5, because if Leroy is in the mix, I would have Leroy in between those 2. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And well, think about it, the other person would be a Ryan, and I still could see Ryan outperforming Brandon, but I also could see it going either direction with that too.
I could see Ryan doing better, and it wouldn't even necessarily be strictly on performance, which he could win, and it wouldn't surprise me that much. But I think Ryan has the better social connections, which would be the same thing with like Leroy, that I think he has the better social connections as to someone as like Brandon.
Yeah, let's go 5. I'm down.
All right, let's go 5 on Brandon.
Brandon at 5. Brad.
Oh, fuck. I think Brad's going to be in a good mindset, though. I think his head's going to be better. You know, think about how long this gap is. When Brad's good,
he's good.
He's good.
So the question is, are we putting him at 2 or 4?
I think, you know, he's getting his from apparently to the one comment we got from weeks ago where we made a joke about it. He's having his second midlife crisis. So he's going to be banging someone, which that did wonders for him. Not winning wonders last time, but he went deep into vendettas. I would lean 2, but
I can go 2.
What do you think? What do you think, Lauren?
I can go 2 on that.
Okay.
I mean, we have a little bit of wiggle room because we don't have our number 5 there. Hopefully, like number 1 will at least be able to pinpoint here.
Yeah. Right. You have your number 1 and your number 4 open.
Yep.
Yeah. You're putting Brad at 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rachel.
So, ooh.
I'm probably too high on Rachel, so I'm going to let you take this conversation because I love Rachel. My immediate thought is number 1, but I'm also willing to admit that I'm a huge homer on Rachel, so I'm going to let you steer the ship, Lauren.
I think Rachel coming back just off of this All-Star season has the drive, the determination to want to prove to people I can come in and win this. So I'm down to go with 1.
We're totally going to have Cara or Laurel at 4. But yeah, let's
just take
maybe we're going to put her at 1 and hope that a Leroy
or Ryan. That's what I mean.
Unless we miss someone else.
Nicole, but I'd be fine with Nicole at 4.
Nicole's not on
season. Oh, she's not. She's on All Stars 5.
Yeah. Okay, so Rachel's at 1, so it leaves your 4 spot open. I can tell you, it's not Ryan. It's not Leroy.
Was it Tina?
It's Tina.
Perfect.
Fine, perfect. This was a good. Yeah, this is.
I was very curious if I put Rachel at the second to last one.
Yeah.
If you still went with but Cara and Laurel haven't been said yet. I have to put a world where we had Tina at 1. I would have lived, but there we have it.
I love Rachel. I
do like Rachel.
My first thought was 1 automatically, but like I said, I'm biased there, so that was we were gonna let Lauren make that call.
I'm gonna be really real here, like, as we wrap up this podcast, because the next time you'll see us, like, we might do a podcast here or there before August 14th. But I know we did our cast assessment a while ago, like just the first look as it leaked.
Which
looking
because
at it
it's
now,
going to start coming out. Go back through and look under our challenge feed. You'll be able to see it was me, Alex, and Johnny. We went through and talked about the season 40 cast.
And I'll tell you, I don't remember what I said on that, but looking more at like critically at this cast now, I like putting Rachel at 1 there. I feel pretty strong about her. Oh, you know what? I said Jenny West, but like I would have like Jenny and Rachel like neck and neck with each other, because I think where Jenny is just gonna be like a physical beast, and ready to go, especially if she hits a final. I think Rachel has more connections on this season than she did in All Stars 4. Like because she had the Rachel Fitness videos with a lot of these people that are going to be on the show that aren't just the first era. Like she's going to be good with Johnny. She's going to be good with Jordan. She's going to be good with Casey, and through that, like she's going to probably be good with the Vacation Alliance of it all. Like I think Rachel might be set up pretty well.
Yeah. And we kind of half cheated when we were doing our 40 cast assessment. We picked a winner from each era of who we were thinking. So we didn't make one, big overall prediction. I know Rachel was my prediction for era 1, but there was a lot of bias. And also looking at her competition, I think she was the clear choice if you were going to pick someone from era 1.
Oh, for sure. So I'm going to finish this off with a prediction of an overall. I'll start. As much as I would love a Rachel win, but I'm going to stick true to my overall, which was we're finally getting Jenny West back. I want to see a Jenny West win. And for the guys, it might shock one of you. I think Jordan gets his next one.
Ooh.
You have no idea how much I want that, because then I can start making that GOAT argument. And my will come with no shock if you've been listening to us, especially as we talked about Ride or
He's
Dies,
picking Anissa and
world champion
and Brad.
No, I have a standard rule of thumb. If Jordan's on the season, he's my winner pick. Hell, I took him when he was with Anissa, and we saw that didn't go well. But as long as he doesn't get screwed with partners, Jordan's always going to be my winner pick if he's on the season. For the women,
are you going to stick with it? Are you going to back it up?
I want to go Rachel. Screw it. Let me run it back. Give me Cara again.
I mean, still not a bad pick. Like, honestly, there's so many women in this cast before Lauren goes that like can win. Like Rachel can win. Jenny West can win. Cara can win. Laurel can win. Tori can win. Like Casey can win. Like there's a lot of people on the women's side that I'm like, you could give me a convincing case that they could get to the end, be paired with the right person if there's pairings at all, and get that win.
See, I think I agree with that. And then we'll let you give your predictions, Lauren, or we're just filling to give you some time if you're trying to think about it.
I'm trying to give her some time.
I'm in it.
But I think you're absolutely right there, where I think on the guys' side, realistically, I think we're down to probably like 5 or 6 names. Like I think the Jordans, the CTs, they're going to be popular picks. But if they get clipped somewhere along the way, sure, they may not win, and you have 5 or 6 names that could potentially win out of the 20. And I think that's about it. Like, I don't think we're going to see someone come out of left field. As much as I love like a Derek Kaczynski or someone like that, like I don't think we're seeing that come out of left field. I think we're going to see one of the 4 or 5 favorites win the show. Where with the women's side of the 20, there's probably 3 or 4, Rachel, Cara, Jenny West probably being, 3 of the ones that are near the top that I like. But if you could give me a solid argument on probably 10 of the 20, where I'd say I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and this is
like I could see it happening.
Like this is me not even factoring like the era 4s. Like I see Sam in the comments, like
we saw
Olivia,
what Nerys just did.
Mm-hmm. Like if they can get it in, like Olivia did show that she was doing well in the final until she decided to break her face. Nerys, arguably the uncrowned winner in a world where they didn't just do an individual person winning Ride or Die, or not Ride or Die, it's a battle for a new champion. Like you have these cases that can happen. Even in Michelle with a social game with sure, she has a couple enemies going into the season that are strong. She has a lot of friends on this season as well. So like she could get there, and we'll see. Like I think a Michelle can win? No, I would love Michelle to win, but like you have a lot of options there. Like I would say the dark horse for the guys is Derek, if he can get to a final where you don't have just these random ass like competitions to eliminate people and you just have them start running. I think you can make a case.
So if he gets any headbanger, he'll do fine. You know what I mean? I truly believe that.
No, not Kaczynski. Chavez. Chavez is my dark horse.
Well, yeah, you're right with the running part. I think he has to get to the final. That's going to be
that's what I'm saying. Like if he can get there, that's why he's a dark horse. He's not a contender yet, but he's like, well, if he sneaks in there, Like
here, I do have one question I want to ask, but let's get Lauren's picks.
Yeah, let's get Lauren's picks.
Somewhat answer my question.
Okay, so I picked Laurel this season. Laurel didn't end up winning. So I just think maybe
she's going to run it back as well.
I'm going to run it back only because I think she's just going to go in with a huge chip on her shoulder per usual, and she's going to be there, I think, for a long time, because I think people get intimidated by going into an elimination against her. So I think it keeps her out of it. She was able to stay out of it this time, lucked into still getting into the final. So I don't see, she does have enemies. Don't get me wrong. There's people that will come for her. But again, I think she's still going to have the opportunity to, however they format the season. I don't know if they said if they're, you know how it changes with dailies and all that. If you win the daily, you get to pick however the format may be. She has chances to win those. So that's helpful, in my opinion, for her to have a case. In terms of the guys, I didn't look at the whole cast because
you're going to run it back the entire way and say Tony too.
I know that's where I was about to go and just say, I think he was so bummed about losing out on not being able to participate in this previous All-Star season. And truly, I think he looked better than ever. And I think he's fit, ready to go. It's just, can Tony make smart decisions and not get his brain clouded by other people's opinions and what they are communicating with him to maybe or maybe not do.
And we also have to factor in for him, how does he fit in his era? Like with who is brought in, because he's stuck in era 3 where a lot of that is Vacation Alliance.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I want to ask. We just talked about how deep the women's cast is, and I said there's 4 or 5, and maybe a few dark horses for the guys. But I think that because there's so few, it becomes interesting. Of who do you think are, and we can go through quick because I know we've been going through a little longer here. But who realistically has a shot at winning from the guy's side? Because I think that's where it becomes interesting. Because if you can get rid of 3 or 4 people, it really opens up the field. Mm-hmm. Where for me personally, I don't think anyone from Era 1 can win from the guy's side. Simply because I don't think they'll let CT do what they've let CT do the past few challenges and let him get deep into the game. So I don't think anyone from Era 1's winning from the guys.
And what CT are we getting? Like, are we getting
Castle Death?
Because when he came in for 39, like he wasn't in his his back-to-back win shape. He was in I just came back from the Traitors shape. Mm-hmm. So I have concerns there. Even though you're never supposed to count out CT, but I have concerns there. But he's the only one of that era that I would have upside on. Well, if they let him sneak in, then he can win because he'll just shed it off during the season and then be good to go. From era 2,
for me,
I already said my dark horse is Derek, but Johnny's in a final. You guarantee that at a minimum he's getting second or third place.
I wouldn't say he's a favorite. I would say for my dark horse, it would be like a Nehemiah. That he isn't someone that I'd put as a favorite that I think he will win, but if enough things break his way, he is shot.
He needs eliminations to break his way is what's going to help Nehemiah, because he's not going to be someone I think stays out of elimination. Nehemiah's going in.
Yeah. I agree. And it's also just how long does it take before Era 2 men have to go into elimination? And if the format's Era 2 has to go against Era 2, or if they're going against different eras, how long can they last? Because I remember when we were talking about it, on paper, we're oh man, this is a little rough. But after seeing Derek compete in daily, at least in dailies, we didn't see him compete in elimination. I'm not counting the final elimination. We didn't see that. We know Brandon can do well in an elimination. Ryan,
he's too much of a question mark. We've just never really had to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Bananas, it's basically just based off career. It's a 50-50 whenever he's down there of true. And that's riding the fence, but it's literally his challenge career. It's basically a 50-50 record of wins and losses. But he's on a little bit of a heater. He's on a little bit of heater of late, but.
And you'd think that Bananas would be safe. And like I said, we don't know the exact format, but if you're thinking, hey, we want to try to keep era, as long as they're keeping in their eras, you'd think that even the women would be like, whether you like Bananas or not, which there are going to be a number of people in that era that he's close with, they have to look at it as we can't afford to lose him because he is the best competitor they have in era 2.
Right. I do think you have that mindset, but at the same time, I think people are going to go in saying, there's no way I'm going to let Bananas somehow, some way get to another end where he has a chance to compete for the final and potentially get another win.
See, I agree with you, and that's why he's still going to be in the final.
But
it's just what he does. But I and you guys know, and anyone who listens to the pod knows, I'm a big Bananas guy. Always has been. I don't think he can win it straight up anymore. Like I just think he's like, while he stays in shape, I don't think he, like, if you're putting him and Jordan in a final and they're going head to head, Jordan's going to beat him more times than not at this stage in both of their lives.
Yeah. And so this was my point, is that we're through the first 2 eras and we have men that can win. We have a Bananas, sure, things break.
Bananas has a top 3 placement upside.
Yeah, he has that, and then you have a few dark horses in a Derek and potentially Nehemiah, where you go to era 3 and what, Jordan's a definite yes.
Corey, if he can, like, Corey doesn't have the track record of closing, but he does have the
he's a finals threat of getting to the finals.
Yeah, he's a finals threat, and in certain scenarios, you could have made a case that he was a lot closer than people think of getting the win on a few of them.
Yeah, so I put Corey as, he's there getting to the
Devin
finals.
is not.
I don't think Devin has
not
chance.
this season. Not this season.
I want him to so bad just because I love him. I want Devin to at least stick around for enough of the season where I get all of the Devin antics. That's all I want.
I think Devin there's 2 ways the season can go. Either people are sick of him running his mouth because he finally won and he's out right away, or he has a good run until about halfway through the season, and then he goes. Like, I don't think he has Endgame anywhere sniffing it on his radar this season.
Right. And then you have Leroy
no chance
in there, and Tony that close out the 3.
I'd say Tony
or 3.
I'd say Tony's a possibility.
Yep. And then you have the Young Bucks of era 4, where
not
the Young Bucks, but some like a Kyland. A
Kyland, I think you have to say based off of what we just got.
Horacio, based off the tape.
Yeah.
If you allow him to escape eliminations and he's able to go through.
Well, and he won what? He won 4 or 5 in Ride or Dies, so he's proven there as well.
Yeah. Theo is back, and while he was very boring in World Championships, we know what he's capable of. And
I like to pretend that Theo doesn't exist. I just like to remember War of the Worlds Theo.
I can't. And then who else rounds out era 4? Josh. No. Love him, but no.
Paulie.
And Paulie. I just have a fear. I have a fear.
I don't think he can. I think Paulie can work himself back into the mix, that he could be a challenge champ somewhere down the line. But his first time going back into the flagship, it's a no for me.
I think he doesn't get the courtesy of, well, he went out early in USA. We'll give him a break here. I think he's going to be thrown into the fire again if that group has to go into elimination early.
I worry about the fact that I think coming back onto the flagship, I think both Kara and Paulie are going to have to deal with surviving some elimination wins. Now, I think they have the chance that if they can win 1 or 2 to potentially go deeper in the game, but I think both of them are going to be treated almost like, oh, this is your second go around, rookies. Everyone's been bashing you. We're going to throw you into the first few eliminations and then see how things go.
Right. They're definitely going to go in. They're not going to be people that have the opportunity to coast to a final. There's no doubt. But I will agree with you too, as well, saying they could go into a couple, but then after that, people are saying, well, I don't want to go against them. I'd rather go against someone easier if I have an option to do so. So that's where you kind of get that balancing point of throw them in early, see if we can get somebody to get the bait, get them out of here. And then if not, then all right, let's kind of see how we feel about it now.
And I think it'd be a lot easier for someone like Kara, where if you know that first, quarter of the game, half the game is, let's get her out because she's going against someone in Era 2. Like, put her against an Emily, a Laurel, and we have a strong person out. But just as you said, Lauren, where you get further in the game where maybe you're not going by Era, I'm not going down against Kara.
But also, so 2 things here. I'm going to do the first one first. Who lasts longer in the season, Kara or Laurel?
So this might be a hot take, and maybe probably not a hot take. I think some way they both make it to the final.
So Alex, I think you sent a text to me about this, and this was like, I don't know, a month or 2 ago. And we had it wasn't a disagreement, I just misunderstood what you said.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think what it is I think Kara's there longer, but Kara sees elimination first. I was saying that I think Kara she'll see an elimination before Laurel will, but I have belief that Kara will win, that she'll stay there past the Laurel overall in the game.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But also talking about the women, because we already did before we went for the men, the women are going to be the storylines for this season because just like right off the bat, you have Olivia and Nerys. They're going to come to a head again. Does it resolve everything? Potentially, based off what we're seeing in social media. We don't know what happens, but it sounds like they are fine now. But that's still a storyline going to this season. You have Kara you have Laurel and Michelle. And Michelle being terrified of Laurel. I don't think you have Kara and Michelle this time around, but you do have Kara and Laurel this time around. And you also have Kara and Tori from World of Worlds. Does that get resolved and they come together somehow? There are certain combinations within here that are going to be intriguing. Like I see Kara working with Rachel, but like Rachel having more options than Kara. What is Kara and Bananas' relationship going to be like? Because in 1 second, Bananas has Kara on the podcast and they seem decent with each other, and then he has the next 3 people on the podcast bashing Kara and he joins with them. So it's like, what are we going to see there? Like, there's going to be so many different,
not to mention the Amanda of it all, which will always just mess shit up.
Unfortunately for Amanda, she's screwed this season. And
Era 3, she's screwed.
She's gonna have a tough road. And the problem with Amanda, once Amanda goes in, she's probably
because they always give her a physical comp.
Yes, they do.
I just want to see like an Amanda and Tina elimination where it's nothing that it's just like a cat off, like who can make like the snarkiest comments that's voted on. That's the elimination I want to see.
That's like putting your boy in against Tyree. Like, someone has to win this elimination.
That's what I want to see.
But I
think
then
there's people, like Aviv, which I don't even know what to expect.
Biggest question mark. Like the sole person on this cast that's like not connected in the slightest with any recent challenge lore.
And we didn't even mention like Emily Schramm, who's always put up there.
The only reason why I love Emily Schramm, but I don't feel it for her for this type of season, is because like if we're talking about Kara being disconnected, outside of like seeing her with Bananas from time to time throughout the years, like Emily is disconnected.
She is.
Yeah, I don't think she talks to
and we haven't even mentioned like a Darrell either, but that's because we know he doesn't like heights. And
yeah, I think he fell out of his era, to be honest. I like him personally, don't get me wrong. I think his time has completely passed where it's just he'll do okay, but I'm not expecting any high expectations from him.
I'm excited to watch the Era 5 guy, and we'll say minus CT because there's always the chance of a deep run from him. But the other 4 guys, so you have Mark, Darrell, Brad, and Derek. I'm excited to see all of them back on the flagship, but for like 5 to 7 episodes, and then I expect them to kind of just disappear.
Yeah. But it'll be exciting to watch, and we are under 2 months away from All-Stars, or not All-Stars, Challenge 40 coverage. And in the meantime, we'll figure out some pods to do in between to keep things fresh and get the anticipation rising up for 40. But Dan, do all of our stuff for the end of the podcast. Where can they find us? How can they support us? What we have going on?
Yeah, so if you're paying attention to us, the Reality After Show, there's obviously a lot that are going on. Matt and Johnny, they're continuing every week of doing a Survivor podcast. Right now, it looks like they're going through the different eras and picking who they are expecting and like to see on season 50 since that announcement. So they're doing that mid to end of week every week. Check that out. Wendell, Bryce, and Derek, is the GOAT still going on? I believe they're finishing up.
I think it's finishing up.
Yeah.
Coverage of that. Rachel Riley and Jen Hoffman doing Reality Queens. And there even could be another podcast or two that I'm missing from our feed. We have so much going on. It's truly hard to keep up with everything. This will end it for All Stars 4. But as Alex mentioned, I'm sure you'll see us pop up a few times prior to season 40, because as that gets closer and closer, there's no way we're not going to want to talk about that and release some of that in the outlet of this beautiful podcast. We appreciate all the watchers, viewers. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the bell, like, and subscribe. That way you get notified every time we go live. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you may listen to your podcasts, please take a minute and rate and review us. Give us 5 stars. Just takes a few seconds. It helps us out quite tremendously. And as always, the best way to support the podcast is become a patron at realitypatron.com. Sign up, join us for a month. If you don't like it, Johnny will give you your money back and refund you. And I am Dan. Alex, Lauren, any last thoughts?
Hey, don't quit on us.
That'll do it.
Yeah, follow along. We are here for the ride, always, for every challenge season, for the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll be here to talk all of it. I can't wait to see all you in mid-August to start talking about a new season.
Yes, we will be back soon. We love you all. We appreciate you. Thank you for a great season, and goodbye.